Everything else sounded good, which is a lot. I want to go live here. Be live on the main in
Three.
2.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Haki, Ammi here, the Success Scholar. Thank you for tuning in. We are here live at Everlasting Life Restaurant, 9185 Central Avenue in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Thank you all for tuning and listening. Come on through, get yourself some good grub. And I'm here with a good brother, having a good conversation, ready to start this evening off here with Brother Darrick Johnson, who is a former fighter, actor, workshop facilitator, as well as mentor of By Any Means Edutainment.
Yes.
And so we've been, really having a good discussion, talking about the life of and legacy of Malcolm X. And he does a one-man show. And we, had a little bit of discussion about his fighting background and his experience, with that as well. But, we can talk about that, of course. And, you were sharing about a little earlier, how you came across Malcolm X's work. So just kind of, go with that.
So it was kind of like I said, I was one of those kids. I was in and out of trouble in school and what have you. And one day I was skipping class, hang out in the school library, and the teacher comes along and looks at me suspiciously. And I guess I had no idea I was going to be an actor one day, and my mind's in action. And I randomly grabbed a book, and the book happened to be a book about Malcolm X. It wasn't the autobiography, but it was a book about Malcolm.
Right.
And I quickly realized that I was no longer faking, but I was fully engaged, flipping through the pages, looking at this picture, this man who must have been really saying something. Now, I'm not quite sure whether I had heard of him then or not, but that was when he really resonated within me. And I began to read more and more about him. I went into the Marine Corps in 1984. So when you go into the military, you meet people from different places. And I was able to interact with a lot of us from Chicago that really engaged me into a lot of things. And all of a sudden, Malcolm reemerged. And then that's when I read the autobiography. And I remember reading the autobiography, and it said to me that regardless of where you start in life, with determination, faith, and drive, you can achieve anything. Because at that time in my life, I'd gone through a lot of ups and downs in life, and I went into the Marine Corps basically to continue my boxing, because I had been boxing somewhat successfully out here in the DC metropolitan area. And as I was mentioning earlier, I had a recruiter who told me about all these former Marines who went on to become, championship fighters, such as Ken Norton, which is one of my favorite fighters back in the day. And so that enticed me to go into the Marine Corps. And then, like I said, I boxed in the Marine Corps, but I also met brothers from different places, especially Chicago, that began to engage me more, and I began to read more. And the autobiography, I read the autobiography, then I read a whole bunch of other iconic figures that really began to change my life, shift my life around. And it was something about Malcolm that resonated with me really deeply, you know what I'm saying? And the thing that most resonated with me was, he was someone who had gone to prison and been a hustler, but then he became one of the most powerful men in the world, an intellectual. Because the thing that he does not get a credit for, in my opinion, is that he's an advocate of education. This was a man who took advantage of his time in prison and educated himself to become one of the most powerful intellectuals. And this man, he was deep on education. And it was something that inspired me to read, to really read and educate myself. As we get so caught up in the system, so to say, but there's a difference between education and gosh, I forgot the word.
Was it indoctrination or
education? No, it's a word. I'm a poet too, so I'm messing up because I'm trying to do my little. I had a poetic flow that I used to say all the time, differentiating his story and history. That's what I was trying to get to. His story and history. You know what I mean? So we are indoctrinated with his story. But then when you read people like Malcolm and other iconic figures, you get a real sense of history.
Hold that right there. Go back to that one if you can, brother. I just want to, if you can go back to the producer. Definitely we're going to talk a little bit about, of course, the life and legacy of Malcolm X, and but I wanted, he went to this. You're doing a one-man show, and of course we're going to share a little bit more about this towards the end.
Okay.
But you have this Ramadan program
Yes,
coming
sir.
up here.
Yes, sir.
So that's this Sunday.
It's coming Sunday for his birthday.
Right, right, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
perfect timing.
Yeah.
So is this at the American Islamic Heritage
Right.
Museum? Now is this the museum? I'm sorry, the because in the movie there was a part.
No,
That's not the plot?
I doubt it. I doubt
Okay,
it. I doubt
okay,
it.
okay.
And let me make a correction on that one because I don't know if I had a typo. It's what's it say? What's the address on it? It's 2315.
Okay, so look at
2315
2315 Martin Luther King.
King Avenue.
Oh, so that's
Yeah.
in Southeast,
Yeah,
right?
it's the southeast.
Okay, American Islamic Heritage Museum.
Yeah. So the movie didn't get any play. Southeast didn't get any play in the movie.
Right.
Not that I'm aware of.
yeah. So that's interesting. But yeah. So and that's where interesting. I think Malcolm inspired many of us, throughout
No
our,
question about it.
evolution,
Yeah.
particularly, it should have that level of inspiration for many thinkers, people that are seeking solutions to what's going on in modern society.
Oh, yeah.
But interesting, today as I was preparing, I looked through his debate at Oxford that he had. I saw a little clip of it, and one thing that him speaking at Harvard, he spoke several places.
Well, that's why I
all over the
describe
world.
as an intellectual.
Yes, and I always remember the narrative that in 1964 he was the most requested speaker.
No question.
I believe, besides Barry Goldwater, who was the presidential candidate.
Right. And
So
what's so interesting about that? He was the most sought after speaker, but also he was demonized by this society. The media like to call him violent, advocate of violence and Satan and all these things. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he was the most sought after speaker. That's interesting. I just find that quite interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody who's supposedly a bad person, based on the media's perception of him, who is the most sought after speaker.
Right. Now take it back. Now, did he always? I mean, like obviously, as a member, because he found Elijah Muhammad's teachings while he was in jail, and he really. I mean, I'm not going to say built the nation, but
he played a big role in it. Let's be clear about that.
Right.
He did.
No doubt, because I mean, if we look at it, Elijah Muhammad was still, a little older.
Yeah.
And so they needed somebody to reach the younger, more
enthusiastic. And that's what Malcolm did.
The harder workers.
Because when Malcolm came out of prison, the Nation of Islam was very much a small group. And then from the time 1960 until 65, the group just expanded because he traveled around the country, lectured on college campuses, made TV appearances, and he found that Muhammad speaks.
Right.
To broaden the teachings.
Right.
So he played a tremendous role in the expansion of the nation. It's not a slight against Elijah Muhammad, not at all. But Malcolm was one that really grew it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think he had a radio show, and then before, I don't know if that was before the Muhammad Speaks, they had Amsterdam News.
I vaguely remember what you're talking about, but he had been in
radio.
I'm not sure he did radio per se, but I know he was featured all the time on different radio shows. I have a lot of stuff. You can find a lot of stuff online.
Yeah,
different things he was featured on.
Absolutely.
And I mean, he was just so profound in his knowledge about a number of things.
Yeah. Agreed.
And that's why I call him an advocate of education.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you said something earlier. He played such a role in many of our lives, young black men's lives, and he forced me to be a critical thinker. And this is what I try to encourage young people. It's so important to be a critical thinker. Just accept what is given to you, but think of it a little deeper than what may be just present right there.
Right. Yeah. Critical thinking skills. And one thing that he actually did, he was able to travel a lot over the United States, and that expanded his consciousness.
He called it broadening his scope. He called that broadening his scope. That was the word he used, broadening his scope. And that's what it basically was doing, just expanding his consciousness, level of consciousness.
Right. So with you like doing this, you know, and you said that how long you've been doing this?
I've been
You do
doing
a
this
one-man show.
Yeah, yeah. I've
Let
done
me just kind of explain to the
yeah.
audience. You do a one-man show where you know.
I do quick changes, and so what it is a one-man show.
And I've seen it. So let
telling
me
the story from based on from the autobiography.
Okay.
And just really using quick little changes, you know, changing the jacket, a hat, or whatever,
Right.
to depict the
periods
Reds,
of
the periods of
life.
his life, the prisoner,
Right.
you know, early Malcolm, and then at the end I go to Mecca, and the verbiage changed a little bit. He was still the same Malcolm. See, a lot of people think he changed so much, you know, because Malcolm, he was about. His main objective was about black people. It was. But then he began to speak about oppressed people, because you know the system in which we lived in was about the haves and have-nots. You know, because poor white folks, they would put you in the same category as us. You know, but and so he was about black people, but he was also about, you know, this country's greed and really elevating those who have and using those who have not to groom, to grow.
Yes.
You know, so he talked about those things as well.
The more the international understanding,
right. Exactly.
You know, just what happened in Africa, and you know, just the whole connection to, I mean, what they call the Middle East, and what's going on there, and just making that global connection to other African people all over the world.
And that's what he was really about, because he was he went to the summit. I'm trying to think of the name of the summit. He was very influenced by the summit. He was an observer for
not the Bandung Conference.
Well, that's that too, but it was in the United. It was in the. He had a lot of heads of state of African states who was behind him, and really trying to build constituency to charge America with human rights violations.
Right.
You know, that's one of the things that he began to try to push forward towards the end of his life, is accusing America for violating the human rights of black people. Because he would always say the fight we're in is not a fight of civil rights. We've been denied our God-given human rights as people. You know, and so that's pretty heavy when you think about it. And you think about it. We have a country that talked about freedom, justice, and equality for all, but you have a race of people who are denied access to certain services that they pay taxes for. You know, it doesn't make any sense. But, you know, he would always talk about, you know, America doesn't practice what it preaches.
Right.
You know, so he was someone that really called this country out, and America was not used to that back in the 1960s. You know, and another thing that, you know, him and Dr. King respected each other. They never got a chance to bring those two together. Really bring them together. They've only met one time, actually. That famous picture of them shaking hands.
In Congress, I think I
think it was in passing. I think when I read about it, it was in passing.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure whether it was.
It was over some kind of bill that was maybe some kind of.
But it wasn't like they were going to have. It wasn't like they were sitting down to have a discussion.
No.
But it was kind of in passing.
Right. I think it was the halls of Congress somewhere.
And I think
or the Senate building.
They were trying to make that happen, and the powers that be didn't want to see that happen. You know. You know, but you know, just think about it, because that's another play that I do. It's not a play that I wrote, but a play called The Meeting, which is about what would happen had Malcolm and Martin joined forces. It's a fictionalized story, but it's very
The Meeting.
It's very well written, and just gives you the different philosophies going back and forth. You know, and then at the end of the play, at the end of it, they kind of realize that we're really trying to achieve the same goal.
Right. Now you wrote that, or?
I did wrote it up. I wrote a play called that.
No, because I saw one like that.
Yeah, I wrote one like that. My other play is called Same Goal, Different View.
Really?
Love is revolutionary.
Same, what is it?
Same goal, different view. Love is revolutionary.
And
this is
you
after love is revolutionary. So, you know, revolution is drastic change, but we're trying to make a change in the name of love. You know, and you think about the movement, that was about love. You know, loving of our future generations. So we're trying to do something now, like in the 60s, Malcolm, Martin. And so this play takes place after they're killed. And so this is the civil rights movement clashing with the Black Panther Party, which Malcolm.
No, you said your play is?
My play is. I don't want to confuse.
You said the civil rights movement clashing with the Black Panther.
That's what my play is about.
My
play is. So yes, I wrote a play, and it's about how Dr. King inspired the civil rights movement, whereas Malcolm inspired the Black Panther Party. So this play takes place after they're both assassinated. and these two groups are clashing. But ultimately, they realize we're trying to achieve the same goal.
Right.
Just the same as Malcolm and Martin. They were trying to achieve the same goal. They had different methods of trying to achieve it.
Right.
And so this place is all about really what I'm trying to say in this play. My plays are always trying to really say something, send messages to really make us think a little deeper than where we are. And so what I'm really trying to say, why today we still sometimes we bicker as opposed to trying to communicate with each other to better understand each other. And when we do that, you don't always have to agree.
Right.
But we need to learn how to agree to disagree without being so negatively disagreeable all the time. And if we began to share with each other our personal goals of whatever we're trying to achieve, we can find more common ground to move forward as opposed to spinning our wheels and bickering over something that if we stop and listen, maybe we can move forward.
Right.
As opposed to remaining stuck.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. No, I certainly appreciate that.
Yeah.
No, I think I recently did see that. Well, the meeting, if that's the same one.
No, the meeting is different. The meeting is about Malcolm and Martin.
Right.
That's a play. I didn't write that play. That's a play. I've been in, and I've done that.
Oh, you've done that.
Times,
okay.
Yeah. So in other words, when I did the meeting, and that's when I first got into acting. Is doing the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I didn't start as an actor. Like I started as a fighter. So I went from the boxing stage to now the performing stage.
Okay.
But everybody was like, man, this brother's deep right here.
Oh,
And somebody said to me one day, hey man, I heard about this play called The Meeting. That's when I did.
No, so you were doing other acting too.
No, at that time I was doing poetry.
You were doing poetry.
I was doing poetry.
Right.
And and everything poetry was spit out. Spitting poetry, that's what we call it in poetry.
Right.
Everything I spit was always something very deep and conscientious.
Okay.
And first they used to call me Black Panther, then people started like, that brother look like Malcolm X.
Okay.
And then somebody said to me, man, you know what? I heard about this play called The Meeting.
Okay.
And I went out and auditioned. And I got the role.
Oh, wow. Okay.
and I was hooked.
Wow.
Because my thing was always using the arts as a means to move forward, you know what I'm saying? To really elevate consciousness and empower people. Because as a young man, of course, your mother don't want to see you be a fighter. My mother used to always say to me, son, God didn't bless you get knocked upside the head in no boxing ring. You have a tremendous creative talent. And so I never really used it much. I used to write things here and there. And everything I noticed, it was like really a deep, conscientious stuff that I used to always write. And then took a dare one day and went to the open mic and did some poetry.
Oh, wow.
And the first time I did some poetry, when I got off the stage, somebody said, I don't know about you guys, but after that brother there, I'm ready to go march. So I was hooked. Then it went from the poetry and I wrote a couple plays. The Meeting was one that inspired me to write Same Goal, Different View, Love is Revolutionary. Like what would happen, there's the meeting, and what happens after they are assassinated, which is it's a fictionalized story, but it's reality, because the Civil Rights Movement was inspired by Dr. King,
right,
and the Black Panther Party in the later 60s after Dr. King was assassinated. We saw the emergence of the Black Panther Party, where we began to question and turn the other cheek. And the Panthers was about defending themselves, which is the philosophy of Malcolm.
Right.
So I think that play it's a play I'm very, very proud of. Very proud of.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So that's why I call what I do edutainment.
Right.
It's about educating and entertaining. That's what the whole meaning behind edutainment is. We educate while we entertain. Because I was one of those cats when I was younger. I said, nah, I'm no song and dance guy. So I can't be just entertaining.
Right.
So I had to add something to it that spoke more to me.
Right.
And that's where the whole edutainment thing came from.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Indeed.
Yeah.
No, we definitely got to get this.
Yeah.
Let me put up some of these flyers up here.
Okay.
I just wanted to share a few different events that. What was that one? No, I had Dr. Lateef Tariq. Let's go back. He teaches at, I don't know if he's still at Howard University. I did several Malcolm X Day things. Keep it right there, Bob. So that was Dr. Jared Ball, Todd Barrows. You see that book that they wrote together? Yeah. So we did that. What year was this?
That was about 3 years, 4 years, something like that.
Yeah. So we did a 2-day Malcolm X weekend. One was here, but we had Dr. Nayala Rasian and Sister Dr. Robin Austin. Those are some Black psychologists. And then in Baltimore, what was that? Todd Barrows, Dr. Jared Barr,
Okay.
Dr. Mark Bowden. He was the president of the Black Psychologists Association, DC chapter at one time. So I don't know, that was maybe, I don't even see what the year is, but that was a couple of years ago. What else we got, brother? I just wanted to go through this. And yeah, so coming up here, this coming Sunday is the Malcolm X, Day event. It's a Ramadan program and iftar, so they serving food after the end of Ramadan. So that's starting at 6:30. They may have other things.
9:30, yeah.
So because you don't go that far long, right? So they're gonna have other.
Well, yeah, they're gonna. No, I'm not going to the whole program. No, I'll probably towards the end.
Okay.
I'm not certain yet, but
right.
No, my program only lasts like 30 minutes.
Right. So that's at the American Islamic Heritage Museum, 2315 Martin Luther King. So we'll show that just one more time again. And this was another one. We gave some awards out. Him, my brother, Dr. Ball again, and Mark Bowden, and we gave some Malcolm X Day awards that was like 2017, so the other one must have been 16 or 15.
And I remember their book.
Oh, you were there?
No, it wasn't there, but I remember the book they wrote.
Yes.
It was a rebuttal to
Manny Morrow's. So what do you think about that? I mean, I don't think I've read the whole thing.
I have. I mean, it was some interesting things in it. People are going to share things based on their perspective. You know what I'm saying? Right. It was some things that I learned in that book. Because he went deeper in talking about Malcolm's relationship with his father. And that was one thing that stood out to me in that book. It's been a while because I read it when it first came out. But one thing that he went deep into Malcolm's father and how his father encouraged him in Garveyism. Right. So he went pretty deep in that. And there was other things that I can't remember offhand, but there were some things that were insightful. That I thought was pretty good. So I didn't think it was a bad book. I enjoyed it. So people will get caught up in some things and criticize for whatever reason. But I'm not being critical of anyone. But like I said, I enjoyed the book. I did.
I think you can get something from everyone. But you made a point about Malcolm's father being a Garveyite, and that must be understood
exactly
early in the context that he had some level of conscious awareness of who he was and the African spirit and the spirit of militancy and black nationalism.
And actually, that was one of the things that drew him to the Nation of Islam, because the Nation of Islam was a lot of that was come from Garveyism.
Well, yes, and true, and many.
So that's the thing that drew him up because Malcolm's family grew up as Garveyites. Right. And so because he was encouraged by his brother, his family members, but especially his younger brother, to join the Nation of Islam when he was in prison. But the thing that really drew him.
So wait a minute. So it was his brother initially, or kind of like a combination?
A combination of his family members.
Film, you say
in the book, it talks about his brother Reginald, his younger brother Reginald. Right. All of his family members had told him about the Nation of Islam and teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But it was Reginald who was really encouraging Malcolm to write Mr. Muhammad. And it wasn't until Reginald said to Malcolm that the messenger will be your ticket out of prison. And that's when Malcolm decided to write, because at the time, when he was first told about Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, his response was he had no interest in religion. But it wasn't until his brother said to him that he will be your ticket out of prison.
Right.
Yeah. And he did get out. He did get out.
Right. So just in terms of him being reformed, did he serve like all his time? Or
no, he served 6 or 10 year sentence.
Okay, right.
So this is in the book. That's what I'm repeating from the book. Is actually his brother Reginald was right in the teachings, because the teachings helped to change him. He had began to be reformed. He was in Charleston prison at first, and he met a brother by the name of John Bembry, who really got him reading and began to go to the library with him. And then when he went to Norfolk State Colony, that was the prison that his family members encouraged him to go to, and that's when they told him about the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he took it a tad deeper. His studies a little deeper. And then that's when he eventually converted to the Nation of Islam after writing Mr. Muhammad.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's it's a very powerful story.
Yeah.
Very powerful story.
All right, beautiful. So so let's talk a little bit. Go into. I actually have Brother Zach Condo's book here.
Okay.
And let me just kind of mention something.
I know Zach, good brother. Good brother.
Right. Let me, just matter of fact, he was on one of those. I think the flyer that I had up there.
We did a program together some years ago.
Really?
At the former Audubon Ballroom.
At the Audubon?
It's called the Malcolm X Betty Shabazz Educational Center now, but it's the former Audubon Ballroom.
Right.
And this was some years ago.
Right.
We did a program together.
Yeah. Okay.
So I know well.
Yeah. So interesting. When I did it was Jared Ball. I don't know if I did a panel discussion or was it Zach by himself, but I think I may have.
Vaguely, I think I've heard that. I think I heard it.
Yeah. So so coming up here, his life, joining the Nation, and would he transition at 39 years old?
30, Malcolm, 39.
So and Dr. King was
same age.
Right.
That's just ironic.
Yeah.
And the thing about it too was their views began to change towards the end of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
People just talk about with Dr. King, I have a dream.
Right.
They don't get into, like, for instance, beyond Vietnam and some of his later speeches where he became more quote unquote militant minded and began to question, turn the other cheek. Whereas Malcolm became maybe a little more inclusive towards the end of his life, where it wasn't as what some people would say harsh. That's what I'm repeating what other people may have said.
Right.
I never thought it was harsh. I just thought he was very to the point.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And he spoke to me. And I wasn't here when he lived, but just through his reading and the things that I've studied over the years, videos and things of that nature. Because we live in an age now where there's nothing you can't find.
Right.
So I tell young people there's no excuse nowadays. Back in the day you had to read this thick book to try to find about things, and now you just go online and you can find out whatever you want to find out. Yeah.
Let me just read this part because Zach is out of Baltimore. I think he's at Coppin now, if I'm not mistaken, but he's at community college. But I'm just gonna read this part of his foreword, not the whole thing. But he said, "This work will not make any friends. Officials of the U.S. government and some of its tentacles will surely not appreciate it. Devout members of the Nation of Islam will not appreciate it. Whites believing the U.S. government is moral and democratic will not appreciate it. Many Western-trained historians who reject conspiracies will not appreciate it. Many blacks who believe that some of our leaders do not make mistakes and who are memorized by the cult of personality will not appreciate it. Why then should I, at age 33, jeopardize the welfare and security of myself and my family by writing this controversial work? The reason is my wife and I are soldiers dedicated to the liberation and empowerment of our people, and it is our responsibility to uncover and share the truth and live by it. If we do not accept this task, then who should?"
Right on. Yeah.
So that's by Zach Kondo.
Oh yeah.
The conspiracies unraveling the assassination of Malcolm X.
I have that book. Yeah.
I'm sure you do.
No question.
Yeah, there's several others.
And and that forward is deep, man. That's right on point. Right on point.
Indeed.
Yes, sir.
Indeed. So no, I'm read that some years ago. And Paul Lee.
I have too. It's been some years since I read it.
Yeah. So but we have to always know that there were different hands, playing different people. And we have to realize that this is a reality today, perhaps on different levels. But have anybody ever came up to you after, and how long had you been doing this total?
I've been doing the one-man show since 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
2012, 13. Okay.
I started working on it in 2012 and actually started doing it in 2013 because I got invited to a tour. Matter of fact, the festival I'm going to in June.
Festival.
I had done small little.
Where that's going to be?
Oh, that's in Greenville, South Carolina. It's called the Chautauqua Festival, and the whole thing is about bringing historical figures out of books and bringing them to life.
Oh, wow.
And so the whole thing is, you're kind of telling your story. You know, you're telling who you are and your significance. And every year there's a theme. And this is a funny story. So when I first got there, invited in 2013, they tried to make the theme outrageous Americans. I said, hold on, I'm not comfortable with that. There was outrageous. And I said, I'm not comfortable with that because there was nothing outrageous about Malcolm X.
Wow.
And I stood for that. You know what I'm saying? I said, because there was nothing. Think about a black person. Isn't, you know, you're not black, of course, but think about that. What black people are going through in the 50s, 40s, 60s, in the time that Malcolm was really prevalent in the 60s.
Nothing outrageous.
There's nothing outrageous about that. He stood for the human rights of people. You know, so I'm not comfortable with that. So they changed it to American Legends. And so that's why I call my one-man show Malcolm X, the American Legend. Okay. So that was the theme then. And so it went very well. And so I had done small little skits. I had been invited to the Malcolm X Betty Shabazz Educational Center, like on 2 occasions. What I did, like a quick in New York, in Harlem. I'd been invited there to do like a small little tidbit, one of his speeches. And I had some of those things on YouTube. These folks had found me on YouTube from it's called the Chautauqua Festival. And they asked me to have a one-man show. Wow. So right away I said, yeah. Then I got to writing. I got to writing. And I started writing in 2012. The festival was in 2013, and it just blew up. Wow. And so the thing that really blew me away about it, because when I went to the website for the Chautauqua Festival, I noticed that it was mostly white audiences. So my first question was, how are these white folks going to receive, no disrespect to anybody, but how are they going to receive Malcolm? Because I know there are many perceptions. And so when I first got there, one lady, she just said to me personally, she wrote it on the webpage. She said, I'm surprised that you guys invited Malcolm X, because every time I saw the finger, it reminded me of Hitler. I said, man, that's outrageous. Malcolm was never responsible for killing anyone. Malcolm was never even a part of any type of public disturbance. You know, to say that the finger point was reminiscent of Hitler is crazy. I said, now, when he talked about by any means necessary, what that actually means is whatever the goal, you do whatever is necessary to achieve the goal. Whatever by any means necessary. People took that and ran with it as if he was advocating violence, but really, his goal was to freedom, justice, equality for black people. And I'm going to do whatever's necessary to achieve that goal. And there was nothing violent about that. It was violent being cast upon us, of course. You know, and he basically said, we're going to defend ourselves. We're not going to sit back and allow you just to beat us. You know? Absolutely. And I think that's the average person is going to do that. I mean, the average person is going to say that. You know? But even though he said some harsh things about Dr. King early on, but I believe, based on things I've read and studied, that they really did respect each other, especially towards the end of Malcolm's life, when he really began to try to reach out to Dr. King to work together. Because actually, he went down to Selma to try to meet with Dr. King, but Dr. King had been arrested in some type of civil rights protest or something, and he did get a chance to speak with Coretta. So as we know about COINTEL and all those things, they feared those two coming together. You know, so some people call this conspiracy theorists, those type of things, but I really do believe those things are actually true. You know, no question about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember I saw what's the movie? The J. Edgar Hoover movie.
Oh yeah.
And man, that guy he like was sinister.
And the thing about it, he reigned terror for a long time because he was one of the persons. He goes back to he was one of the ones to get Marcus Garvey deported from the United States. So that's how far he goes back, and he also the COINTELPRO killed many Black Panthers. He had Malcolm under surveillance. He had Dr. King under surveillance, and every Black leader you want to think about, he had them under surveillance. And illegal tactics. You know, and the whole thing was trying to, what they call it, to kill off a Black Messiah or something like that. That was his whole objective. Was to prevent the rise of a Black Messiah.
two books I want to mention, dealing with that: Agents of Repression, and I think I'm not sure who's the author of that one, but Agents of Repression. And there's one called The FBI and the War on Black America.
I think I've seen that one.
I think it's from 1960, but it's the FBI and the War on Black America. There's a FBI War on Tupac, but the FBI and the War on Black America. So I think it's called Racial Relations, the FBI War on Black America.
I think I have
so everybody want to, check those out. But so we talked about the role of just these different agencies and how Malcolm, really one thing, where he began to realize that perhaps it may not necessarily just be the Nation of Islam.
He talked about that.
Right. Something about, he knew when he was in Egypt,
right,
that people were following him, but then the France
and he said,
being banned. Was that France?
Yeah, it was France. He was banned from France, and he said Elijah Muhammad's hands are not reaching way over to France to be able to prevent him from entering the country. So he was like, he doesn't believe the nation had that kind of power to convince another government agency to prevent him from coming there.
Right.
Yeah. So that's when he knew it was far deeper than just the Nation of Islam.
Right. And that's where, here's the thing with that, because we knew that there were, and I'm speaking, and you never know, how far, their influence was within the agencies to say, to say we got to get Malcolm, and one thing what Zach Kondo says that he says that although Malcolm knew that there were others, he said that many members of the Nation of Islam, there was no love lost, when they saw things happening to him.
Right.
For instance, about his house being bombed, they said that he bombed it himself. And it's like, man, this man about to lose, not just him losing his life, but possibly his children losing his life, and you're minimizing it. And there's no critique, or nobody silencing you from making that kind of statement. I think it was Baines. I'm sorry.
That's the movie, James. I think it might have been John Ali. I'm not certain.
No, it might have been John Ali who said that.
But the sad thing about that whole thing is that we allow different forces to pit us against each other. We were talking about Hooper a little earlier. That spread those half truths and lies that made us go against each other. Because the thing that's so sad about it is that the objective was really about empowering Black people to lift us up from where we were to where we can be.
Right.
And we allowed other forces to pit us against each other. And that's one of the saddest things about history that as I was talking about my plays, is really get people to be mindful of now, that we need to move from beyond all the bickering and name calling and really just try to communicate with each other, to try to better understand each other so we can move forward. Because that's what it's all about, forward motion, as opposed to bickering over things that don't mean anything.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I'm proud of to keep the live legacy of Mr. Malcolm, is using that, my creative spirit to really speak that. Because I do take the liberty of taking some of his speeches and adding things to it to speak to today. Even though we live in a world where you listen to Dr. King or Malcolm, there's so many things that can relate to right now. I will try to twist little things, to make it like for instance, one part of my play, when his father was murdered, and when Malcolm's father was murdered, on the train, and they tried to say it was an accident. And then when the mother tried to collect his insurance policy, they changed it to an accident to suicide, to deny payment. And I said, so it makes you question whether Black lives really matter. When here you go, you have someone who was killed, and you don't want to pay a family who's grieving right now and hurting for money, and you don't want to pay off the insurance policy of the father. You try to deny that, so you change it. It went from an accident to a suicide.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he talks about in the autobiography that, you know, he goes on to talk about if ever a social agency destroyed a family, it's certainly destroyed ours.
Mm-hmm.
Because between the doctors, lawyers, and social workers, they gave us the 1-2 punch to knock us even deeper into poverty.
Mm.
You know, by
Mhm.
denying them payment of the
Right.
father's policy.
Right. Right.
You know, this was a man who he was basically killed because he tried to uplift black people. So that's another thing that's very, very important that people don't talk about. The father's activism as a Garveyite. So it's a deep story. It's a powerful story. And if you really get into it, it can empower you. And that's what it has done to me.
Right.
Taking me from where I was to, you know, to me, just trying to continue to expand, you know.
Yeah. So earlier you said that, did you say that you 4 years ago, you had considered, or recently, did you consider like stopping?
No. I was talking about that. I facilitated
the facilitation.
I had a group called Gathering of Men.
Yes.
I did a group. My thing is about really
a gathering of men, right?
Understanding our purpose as men. You know, God ordained us to lead. It's not all about what you believe in, your religious affiliation. We allow that to divide us too much too, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So my group, the Gathering of Men, was about men coming together, understanding God's divine loving spirit that lives inside of all of us. It's not about what you believe in or who you call God, but about men coming together, understanding our role. And when men come together with the common goal of trying to become better men, better leaders, better fathers, better husbands, better men, the world becomes better. So I did that group for 4 years, and so that's what I was talking about. I felt like it had run its course,
right.
And because before I did it, I was a part of a group called Men on the Move at Inner Vision Spiritual Life Center.
Okay.
And so when I started doing it, I felt like there was a need for it. And so when I stopped recently early this year, I'm hoping that someone else feels a need to pick up that torch and rekindle it. So I felt like it was time for a different voice to lead it. You know, I did 4 years, and I'm very proud of that.
Right.
You know, and because the one thing that I would get from people, brothers, all the time is like, I've never been to something like this where you can really be open, honest, and share about what you really feel, whatever it is. You know, it's something empowering about men coming together.
Right.
You know,
Yes,
you know, and we're trying to be better, better men. You know, and so that's what I've tried to do most of my life. And so portraying Minister Malcolm enheightens that even more, because it challenges me to always look within myself to make sure I am practicing what I'm preaching, my manhood. You know, am I being a good example?
Right.
You know, we all fall short here and there. But, you know, in studying Malcolm the years I've been studying him, my consciousness has been spoken to many times before. Say, all right, brother, you got to step up a little here, step a little. And doing the Gathering of Men did that as well. Because I used to put the programs together and challenging us to think about different things, whether it be manhood, being a husband, what kind of father you were, and what have you. And so putting those lesson plans together also forced me to look at myself. And say, whoa, you got to step up your game a little bit, bro. You know, so that was the good thing about it. So it got to a point where it was like, you know what, it's time to pass the torch on to someone else. I think it's a very powerful piece, you know, because I know what it did to me. When I first got engaged in the significance of men gathering together, I was coming out of my failed marriage, my first marriage, and I was somewhat broken, you know, because I came from somewhat of a broken home, and you know, and my marriage didn't work out. I had 2 kids, and when the marriage, and one of the things I really wanted to do, put a lot of energy in, because I didn't witness a good father figure. You know, he wasn't really that much. He was there. He was in the house, not much engaged in our lives. So I wanted, when I got married, to be a good role model, good husband, good father. I did the latter. I feel proud. I'm very proud of my fatherhood, because I have my daughters now are 27 and 34. That's one of my greatest accomplishments. My one just got married, and the second one, she just had, her son is maybe a year and a half. And the men in their lives, I'm just so proud of. They're very powerful men, you know what I'm saying? Because so that was kind of validation for me, because they say women end up marrying men like their father.
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
When I talk to these guys,
Right.
I can really talk to them. You know, the one that got married, the one that married my youngest daughter, he came to me 3 years prior to marrying her and asked could he date her.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow. I hadn't heard that. That told me that he had been reared with good roots. His roots were good.
Right.
Good parents that, you know, he was molded well.
Right.
So to come at me in that manner to ask me could he date my daughter, I was like,
wow.
So when the marriage came, I already knew that's the next step.
Right.
So,
wow.
you know, yeah.
Well, that's a positive. That's a very, very, I mean,
Yeah,
out of all the accomplishments that you know, desire as a father, I mean, that's
to see them happy, man.
Absolutely.
That's to see them happy, and you know, every day I see them, I'm more proud. You know, now you know they live in their own lives, but I felt like a good foundation was laid, and they're doing well in their lives. They're both doing well.
Yes,
you know, so I'm like I'm doing now, smile when I talk about them. You know,
right. Yeah. So now you got a tour coming up outside of, and we're gonna show that one more time.
Yes.
But so you got a tour.
So,
coming up here. So let's just discuss that.
Yeah, that's in Greenville, South Carolina. I alluded earlier. I went on the same place
Mm-hmm.
in 2013. They invited me back.
Okay.
Here
Beautiful.
In 2019.
Okay.
So it's all about bringing historical figures out of books and bringing them to life.
Right.
So as I mentioned, that tour, I went through the controversy of the theme,
right.
And I got it. What I wanted, what I was satisfied with, which was American legend.
Right.
This theme, when they told me about it, I said it speaks directly to Malcolm. This theme is it's revolutionary.
Oh wow!
So it gives me a chance to maybe bring it a little deeper, a little harder, maybe.
Wow!
You know. Wow. So I said, you know, there's no way that you cannot invite Malcolm X to this particular festival. It's revolutionary. It's Malcolm X all the way live. You know, so you know they fly me and my wife out there. My wife is kind of keeps me at an even keel, you know, because the organizers of the festival, we have a little run-ins here and there, you know, but my wife always keeps me at a real even keel. You know, I'm a very passionate individual, and sometimes passion can be mistaken for anger, which was also Malcolm. Malcolm was a very passionate individual, was passionate about the well-being of Black people, but everyone interpreted it as anger, you know. But he had a right to be angry. Look what was happening to our people back then. So come on.
Right. Indeed.
You know, it's amazing to me sometimes how people would question that. Don't you think he had a right to be angry if it was really all anger like you say it does?
Right.
Like you say it is?
Right. Absolutely. So let's wrap up here. And what else we can put that back on the green one up on the anything else you think?
But let me say a little more about that tour. It's so powerful. What I like about it, like I said, I do a 30-minute piece telling about his life, and I go from Malcolm X, the little boy who he didn't watch it, but his father was murdered.
Right.
His mother was institutionalized. He was sent to the foster care system, sent to several homes. He was told he couldn't be a lawyer because he was Black, and prison, and you know the rest of the story. And so I tell that story in the one-man show. And then after the introduction of who I am, I have to answer questions. A 15-minute question answer, and nothing can go beyond 1965 because, of course, 1965 is when Malcolm was murdered. So the questions can't be asked me beyond 1965. So people engage me with questions, and then I'm asked questions as me, as Darrick.
Okay.
So it's a very powerful piece.
Wow.
It's very powerful. So I do the reenactment, questions as Malcolm in character, and then questions as me, Darrick.
Wow.
And so it's very powerful. So I'm so honored to be going back there. And I, gained some fans that I contact on social media, and so I'm excited about going back to Greenville, South Carolina for the second time.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right. Beautiful. All right. So let's put out your contact information, and we're gonna go to the video in a second. But I'm gonna make some announcements. But we've had Brother Doug Johnson on. He does a one-man Malcolm X show, and he'll be doing that this coming Sunday. May the 19th, 6:30 to 9:30 at the American Islamic Heritage Museum, 2385 Martin Luther King Avenue in Southeast Washington, D.C. So,
And this is to commemorate Malcolm's birthday.
right,
Malcolm would have
birthday.
been 99, I think.
Oh, 99?
I think 99 or 100.
Okay.
One or the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My math is a little off right now, but yeah, this is also commemorating his birthday.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So let's put your contact information out there.
Okay.
People want more information to book you or have you come in and do this presentation as well. So
okay, I can be reached at Darrick Johnson, DARIC Johnson 63@gmail.com, or just call me at 202-427-2414.
Okay. All right. Before we go to that last and final video, just want to announce, well, what's going on? If you heard in the background, Appeal is in the building, DJ One Love, and so we're going to go out there in a second. Who else we got there? Brother Brandon and Reggie and Halima, Brother Kalichi, Dr. Kalichi is there.
Okay.
Appeal. And then this actually, I just saw this Malcolm X event in DC this Saturday, 1 to 5 at Umoja House.
Oh, okay, that's Baba Lumumba.
Baba Lumumba, yes. So
he does it every year.
Yes. So I'll see if I can make it over there to DC Saturday. I know I got something Sunday. My senator, actually, that's her birthday too.
Okay.
My senator in Baltimore, she's actually from Jamaica.
Okay.
So, but also Friday at the Thurgood Marshall Center is Baba Kaba Kamini.
Yeah, I know him.
So that's in the evening. He's also in this documentary called Race War.
Okay.
So I do have copies of that.
Okay.
Who else? 2 people are in that Race War documentary.
So what's the piece he's doing at Thurgood Marshall?
Let's see. He's the continuing legacy of Professor William Leo Hansberry, the architect of American African Studies.
Okay.
So that's going to be interesting. I mean, I know parts and pieces of Leo Hansberry, but I mean, I know Dr. John Henry Clark talks about him a lot. So
that's another iconic figure.
Yeah,
Malcolm was very much
absolutely.
Yes, he learned from John Henry Clark too, because actually it was John Henry Clark and Malcolm that started the OAAU, the Organization for Afro-American Unity.
Wow. Okay.
Because they were inspired. Well, Malcolm was inspired when he went to the summit, the African Summit, which was like heads of African states decided to come together under one collective voice and rid the continent of colonialism. And Malcolm was an observer there, and he came home. Him and John Henry Clark and other Black nationalist leaders formed the Organization of Afro-American Unity, which is modeled after the Organization of African Unity at the conference.
Right. That's a good point. Good point. Thank you for mentioning that. So, so that's why I can make this one for sure for Friday. I don't know about Saturday yet.
I might try to do that myself.
I gave you that one. So I already know what time it is. So, but all right, everybody. Thank you, brother, for tuning in here. We're gonna end out with this little clip. It's a eulogy, Ruby Dee's eulogy of Malcolm.
Still powerful.
X. So let's hopefully we can get that up and close on out here. All right, cool. We got it. Make sure we hear that. That's on. Okay.
You know what? We're not. Your mic is still on. Okay.
Everybody learns to that mistake.
My mind was like, you get calls from that.